Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the show that holds only the highest regard for the movie theater concession stand. And I'm talking about everything from hot dogs to popcorn to Reese's Pieces smoked dogs and all the ices in between. Yes, you are tuned in to Dad's Turn to Talk, which is the
Get some cheese and crackers, some of those little cocktail weenies.
Uh-oh. Something just popped up there.
Yeah, I didn't hear it.
Okay.
You're quiet, Josh. Everybody else is going to hear it. So
Exactly. Watch it. So I just lost my train of thought. Let me get it back. Right. This is the show that talks about only the most important aspects of fatherhood. And by that, I mean pretty much anything we wish to talk about because what can we do? It's our show. That's what exactly what we're doing.
That's right.
So I am joined here by two gentlemen and scholars, the esteemed colleagues of this program. Let me introduce you to the first, who can't wait to hear your liberal message in your next movie, the one and only Bob. Hello, Bob.
hello, how are we doing tonight?
How are you, sir?
You know what? I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing even better after Josh sent me a clip of his golf shot today. In fact, I want to show the unedited version of that right now, if that's okay.
Please do.
I'm so hot.
So if you can see, he had a pretty good golf shot there. So that made my day when I got to see that.
I think J.K. Simmons is my new favorite actor. All right.
But that was unedited, of course. I mean,
unedited, yes.
Very unedited, yeah.
Speaking of that one gentleman you saw golfing, I'd like to introduce you to a man who, if you're alone, angry, and have a skin condition, you're probably dealing with the one and only Josh. Josh, hello.
Oh, thank you, Derico. So glad you're moderating tonight. You are the best, Bob. Great to see you, my friend. Why don't you take the hat off? Let's see what's underneath that hat there, big eye. Come on.
Shut up!
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, hide behind your green screen. I'm doing great, though, Derek. I'm doing great. I'm ready for a great show. It's been a great week. How are you, my friend?
Living the dream, moving the movement. It is, you can tell it's spring down here because at about, let's say 6:30 most nights, the fog starts to roll in and it gets cold again. But during the day, it's just lovely. So feel free to come on up and head out by about 6:30. You guys are going to be fine.
Nice. We should do a podcast from San Francisco one day.
You're more than welcome to. I don't think Bob's going to want to do that. That's too much liberal message for him.
heck no. I like being here in the free state of Texas.
The free state.
I bet you do. I bet you do.
All right. Well, what do you say we get on to the topic of the evening? Folks, they say variety is the spice of life. And you'll notice within our first two episodes that we had a tendency to jump around from topic to topic. I'm sure we'll do that in the future episodes as well, but tonight we decided to change this up, and with variety being the spice of life, gentlemen, let's make this dish a little Cajun, shall we? We're going to talk about one topic this evening, and one only, and you're going to like the way this suit fits. Tonight we're talking about the Rocky movie franchise. That's right, folks, it's all things Balboa, all things Italian stallion this evening. I'd like to begin, and forgive me, gentlemen, I'm going to speak on your behalf. If you are a red-blooded American man around our age, probably even a little bit older, and you don't like these movies, you're most likely a communist, and I'd like for one to have a background check.
Yeah, you're probably not wrong there, Derek. I mean, Rocky is the quintessential American hero. I mean, you can't get more Americana than Rocky.
No. And little notes about the movie franchise history here. Be it that it doesn't seem like it, it actually lasted 30 years, gents. 1976 to 2006. 30 on the dot. and took in a total box office between the combined 6 movies of $1.3 billion. That's billion with a B.
Wow.
And we've gotten to know so many consistent characters through these movies that we've all known and fell in love with. Of course, the incomparable Sylvester Stallone as the champ himself, Rocky Balboa. The lovely Talia Shire as Adrian, the love of the champ's life. We've gotten to know Burt Young as Paulie, the drunken corner man, because that's how you want your corner. Of course, the trainer, the one and only Burgess Meredith, Mickey. Gentleman we lost, unfortunately, too soon. Carl Weathers as Apollo Creed, the arch nemesis yet best friend of the champ. And my personal favorite, Tony Burton, playing the one and only Duke, the trainer of Apollo and the champ, as we go through the movies.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Interesting.
You forgot the most important character, though.
Who was that?
You don't know?
That came. I was waiting for that. You can't just do it.
The most important character here now.
We'll get into
George
that.
Washington
Right. There's one-off characters here too that we have to talk about. Folks, like Bob said, there really is nothing more American than the Rocky Balboa series. Now, I'd like to kind of start off just by talking about your first experiences or our first experiences and our introductions to Rocky. How you guys first caught on to Rocky? What were your first experiences with it? Either can start. Take it away.
Bob,
Go
you
ahead, Josh.
Oh, you want me to? Okay, I'll go. So it's funny.
I await the word of Vigo.
Thank you. Let me know when I
Go ahead,
start.
Josh. Go ahead.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not
Okay.
sure.
Okay.
I'm waiting for your word here. Come on.
So I thought about it today, and I actually remember my first image of Rocky was not the original Rocky, was actually Rocky 4, and was when Apollo died. And you have that scene with, Rocky with the towel, and he drops the towel at the very end. I always remember that. And so, that stuck with me, and then ended up going back. And I remember I had all the VHS tapes of it and just fell in love with it. Rocky is the true underdog story. Nobody had given him a chance. Even in real life, the odd makers were not giving Sylvester Stallone a chance. They wanted to cast somebody else in the role, and he stuck to his guns.
Yep.
And he said, no, I am doing this movie. He even sold his dog for a couple weeks or something.
That's right.
Until they got the movie made. And it was just such an amazing, franchise. But yeah, literally, I just remember that scene in Rocky 4 as really my first image. I mean, it came out, 1984, Derek?
The first one?
Yeah. No, the
No.
fourth one.
Well,
No,
the fourth one came out in 85. 85.
So
We'll get
I
into
don't
that.
know. I don't know how I watched it. I don't know if I was in the theater or if it was at home, but I was, totally hooked and, loved all of them and remember watching them over and over and over again.
Very good. And to you, Bob. Your first movie.
For me, I don't really remember per se how I started Rocky, but I do remember the one that comes to my mind, at least the furthest back that I remember. And this is going to sound weird. It's actually the scene in Rocky 3 where Rock is sitting down with Mickey, and Mickey's explaining to him that he had handpicked the fighters, and you have Rocky turning around saying, "Why'd you do it, Mick?" And for some reason, that is the scene I can remember seeing first. I don't know why that's what comes to
interesting.
my mind, but so obviously Rocky 3 was somehow the one I was first exposed to. But that's the one that I remember the most. Like I said, Rocky is probably the quintessential American hero. In fact, he's easily one of my favorite, if not my favorite movie character of all time. And he's arguably the greatest film hero in history. And I say arguably because obviously there's so many good ones out there, but you can make a strong case for Rocky, especially given how long the series lasted, how many sequels it's spun off from it, as well as a spin-off series. So with all of that, you can easily say that he's arguably the greatest film hero, and it's just something I always loved watching growing up. It didn't matter which one of the series. I loved every single one of them.
Good story. My first experience with Rocky, actually, I can't even really call it an experience. I remember images, right? Rocky with the American trunks on. That's the first one that came into my head. And I'm pretty sure that was number 4 where we first saw that. It is number 4.
Actually, he wore the American trunks in part 3.
Did he?
Yes,
He
wore them
did.
in
He did.
part 3.
Apollo gave it to him.
Remember, he turns around and says, "Hey, Apollo, these are the colors that you wore in our first fight together. I can't wear your colors."
Derek, are
Just
you thinking, is your image the one on the cover, though, of Rocky 4 with Duke holding him up and he's got the American flag and
There's
everything?
that. Yeah. Because
Okay.
here's the problem. I have clips, like images in my head,
Right.
but I never saw like a full movie until much later because
Okay.
my mom thought that it was too violent. It was too bloody and too
Interesting.
real. So she wanted me to stay away from it until I was about, I want to say 12 or 13. And
wow.
I started catching, I think somehow I got a hold of clips of Rocky 2 first because I had HBO as a kid. I saw a lot of stuff I wasn't supposed to watch. But then I start realizing,
You too, huh?
yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Life
yeah.
was good. So,
And yet we won't let our kids watch anything. You know?
nope,
I know.
nope, that's
It's
how it
very-
goes. Sorry, we get the right.
It's very different.
Yeah. So when I think back, I remember asking my mom and my dad, like, I'm like, wait, how many of there are these? They're like, there's like 4. And I wanted to start from the beginning. So that's when I saw the first one. And then I got to finally play catch up with all of them. And the fourth one just rings true in my head of the first images because I saw Drago for the first time too with the blonde hair. That big Russian boy who was not nice. We'll get into that later. But that was my first image of it. But I do remember the music, you know, the I Have the Tiger, so on and so forth, playing when you watched Rocky 2. Rocky also, not the number 2. That's like my first story with it. And the first Rocky, I remember him drinking the eggs.
Yes. Yep.
And me being a fat kid.
Did you ever try it?
Yeah, no, I thought as the fat
Mm.
kid, I thought if I took down a bunch of eggs that would make me ripped. And no, my mom caught me like doing it. And she immediately threw the glass out and said, "Don't ever do that."
Really? Did you do it, Bob?
Of course. How do you think I got
I
the
never did.
physique that I have today?
Oh, jeez. Good
That's
God.
a champ physique.
It's like you ate a whole omelet instead of.
But you see, here's the
eggs. Jeez.
problem. You see, I did eat all those eggs. I just mixed them in with the cake batter.
With or without the butter? Probably both.
Absolutely
What-
both. You're gonna
what
do it.
was
You got to do it
the-
right.
Yeah.
This is random. What was the theme song at the beginning of Rocky 4 with the gloves coming in? Was it
It was
A
Eye of the
Burning
Tiger.
Heart? Or was it Eye of the Tiger?
Yeah, it's Eye of the Tiger.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
So yeah, that was
Because
my,
remember, they have the gloves with the USA glove and then the
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 Russian.
Soviet glove, and then
Right.
it goes right into the recap of Rocky 3,
Mm,
which is why
that's
they did
right.
Eye of the Tiger again.
got it.
Does
Got
it
it.
start?
Okay.
Does 4 start off with the secret fight that Apollo and
Yeah,
Rocky
it shows a
Yeah.
recap of
Yeah.
the secret fight as well. Just it just pretty much recaps the fight and then the ending of Rocky 3. And then
Got
that's
it.
when he shows back up at the house, and the little kid's like, "Oh, where'd you get that hat?" "Oh, a friend gave it to me. You like it?" You know, so
You
no,
know,
but we'll
after
get into
watching-
that later.
After watching some of the fight sequences too, I could see why my mom didn't want me watching that so young.
Well, especially in that movie. Good
So
God.
that's brutal.
Rocky 4?
Yep.
My God.
Well, that was a wonderful overview and introduction from all our perspectives. Shall we get on with the review of the Put your biceps down, Josh.
Sorry, I just get into the mood. I'm sorry. You know, one of us has to have a good physique here, and
Shut up!
yeah, Bobby, we need to cut your fingers off already, okay? You're not funny. Every 30 seconds, you're doing that. Okay, go ahead, Derek.
This is some of the best work we've ever done.
Absolutely.
So, with the series breakdown, I'm not going to get into the plot and all the details and little, tidbits that we can obviously go through, because I'm assuming most folks who watch this have probably seen all these movies. If you have any hate mail about that, send it over to Josh, because I don't want to hear it. All right. So why don't we get on? Best place to start is at the first order of business, which is the original Rocky film. This one came out December 3rd, 1976. That is before I am even born. I'm not going to age myself too much there.
Yeah.
It was, of course, we talked about, written by Sylvester Stallone, but the director for this film was John Avildsen. I can't pronounce that name. I tried doing it earlier, too. You might not think you're familiar with him. Believe it or not, you probably are. And you guys are, too. He directed both Karate Kid Part 1 and 2, as well as Lean on Me. They used to call him Crazy Joe. Now they call him Batman. In this film, you guys want to take a guess at what the budget was for this?
Ooh.
Oh my God! Back then?
Yeah.
Oh jeez, I'm afraid to pick a number.
I'm going to say that it was less than $1 million.
Bob's right. $860,000.
Wow.
And the reason why I'm thinking that is because when you look at the film itself, everything is in practical sets. They didn't have to go out, and I don't think they really had to build sets for this. Everything, I'm sure they found a freezer somewhere to film the scene where he's punching the meat. I'm sure they found a gym somewhere to do all the training sequences. So I'm sure they were able to save money that way. And then Stallone, he wasn't a big star at that time. So we already know that he made very little money to play in the movie itself. So that's why I figure it was less than $1 million.
Yep. But boy, did they make up for it at the box office. $225 million is what they took.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Did Stallone cast everybody, or did somebody else kind of go with Talia Shire and, Burton and all those guys and Burgess Meredith?
If I understand correctly, I think they did go through a casting agency, but I know Sly had a big hand in selecting who he wanted in the film.
Got it.
Yep.
Got it.
So those are some details there. Thoughts about the first film, gentlemen? Let's get into it.
It's
Go ahead,
amazing.
Bob.
The first film is amazing. Just from a story standpoint, this idea of this down in his luck boxer who everything is going wrong. I mean, he's got multiple jobs. He boxes, he's working as a loan shark, he's doing whatever, a collector for a loan shark, doing pretty much whatever he can to try to make ends meet, and he's got this lonely life. All he's got are these little turtles to keep him company. And yet he gets this title shot, and it's just like at the right time, everything seems to start going right for him. He ends up hooking up with Adrian, of course. He gets the title shot. He finds a manager to turn around and help him. It's just everything starts coming together. And all he needs at this point is just belief that he's not just some bum, that he's actually more than that. And that's what the whole fight is for. It's for him to prove to himself that he's something more than just the bum on the street. It's not even about winning. I mean, he even says, I can't win, but he's just trying to prove something to himself. And I think it's an amazing story. Well casted, great acting overall. It's a great film.
To you, Josh.
I have one word for this movie: gritty. It was amazing. It just looked great. The way he trained was unbelievable. Like Bob said, it's a true underdog story. A guy who was trying to, work multiple jobs, was lonely, finally met the girl of his dreams, and then ended up getting a championship match with, at the time, the hottest boxer in the world. And the fact that he went what was it, Bob, 12 rounds or 15?
No, he went 15 because during that time, heavyweight championship matches went 15 rounds.
And people were like shocked by the end. I always, that fame, we talk about like what we remember. One of the famous scenes is at the very end when Rocky kind of tells Apollo, come on. And Apollo just like puts his head down, like how much more can this kid take?
You know what? One of the things, just real quick, Josh, to throw in, because you're mentioning he's telling him, come on. One of the things that even as all this amazing stuff is happening to Rocky, he just kind of keeps this simpleness about him. True. And I love that about him. Heck, even at the end of the fight, when Adrian shows up, like he's not even concerned if he won the fight or not. You're hearing the ring announcer saying that it's a split decision and announcing what the judges said, and he's not even paying attention to that. He's just screaming for Adrian. And then when she comes in, what's he concerned about? Where's your hat?
Yeah.
He's just very simple. And I love that about the character. He's just an extremely lovable character.
It was great. It's like a great contrast between him and Apollo. Like you just said, Rocky was more concerned about Adrian and her hat. Apollo was upset. He was upset that this bum went toe-to-toe with him for 15 rounds, and Apollo won by split decision.
But we don't really find that out until we get to the second one, how upset he was. And because remember, we don't really know when the film came out. I don't think this wasn't intended to be a franchise. I don't think.
Oh, really?
No, this wasn't intended to be a franchise.
No,
they only got a sequel because it was so successful. And I mean, we can get into that when we go into Rocky 2, but Apollo wasn't taking the fight seriously in the first film. I mean, you have that scene where he's Rocky's punching, the meat, and Duke is watching it on television, and he's like, "Hey, champ, you need to come over and check out this guy you're gonna fight on TV. It looks like he means business." Yeah. I mean business too. Hey, you got my coffee?
Yeah.
That was Apollo's mentality in that first fight.
He didn't look at it as a fight. He looked at it as a publicity stunt.
Well, that's what it was. I mean, remember, he turns around and he even says that in order to, since they don't have a top contender available, because I don't know if you remember or not, but the whole reason why Rocky got this title shot was because Apollo had a title fight already lined up. The top contender broke a bone in his hand, I believe.
Right. Yep.
And because of that, he wasn't able to fight. And so Apollo even turns around and says, okay, so if we're going to still have a fight, then what we're going to need is a gimmick. And so that was the whole point. It was a publicity stunt.
Yep. A couple of thoughts
What do you think?
The thoughts I had about the first film. It's actually, it ties back to what Bob was saying. It's pretty incredible how this runs and feels like an indie movie, because in a lot of ways it was.
Yeah.
To Bob's point, they didn't need a lot of sets to make this happen. They didn't need a serious cast to make this happen. They didn't need all the things that really make a big budget movie. They did keep it simple. And Rocky was perfectly played by Sly. What I loved about Sly was that for as hard and rough as his life is, he always seems to keep his head up. He always seems to have a good attitude. He just doesn't ever stay that unpositive. And for a guy that may not be the brightest bulb in the drawer, or, maybe the poorest guy out there, not riches by any means, he just comes off as lovable, which is a big part of why you get behind him. And combine that with the rags to riches story that you guys are talking about, it really does make it the perfect origin story. I can't say it's my favorite out of all the movies, but it is absolutely incredible if you're looking for a great point to start. If you're going to start watching these movies, for those that haven't watched these, start with the first. Don't jump around. Go right to the beginning.
And I agree with you about the favorite. I agree with you that.
Yeah, we can get into best and favorite here in a little bit.
Yeah.
Something that you just said, you're talking about how lovable he is, and he's not the richest. Despite the fact that he doesn't have all the breaks, you watch him throughout the film, and he's turning around trying to help people.
Yeah.
Still, like there's the whole scene with him and little Marie, where he's walking her home and trying to give her life lessons about trying to avoid the wrong type of people. You hang out with good people, or smart people, you get smart friends, you know. And he's trying to teach her, and he's telling her, "Oh, don't be smoking; it'll rot your teeth." Maybe I like rotten teeth. Oh, you know. So here he is, down in his luck, and yet he takes the time to do something like that.
Yeah.
He, like you
Totally
said, he's
agree.
an extremely lovable character. He's just the way he views people, and he wants to help people out and do things. And like I said earlier, he's just very simple. The things that kind of bother him, they don't seem to bother anybody else. And the things that bother everybody else, they don't bother him.
Yeah.
It's little
Right.
things that kind of bother him, like a simple scene earlier in the film where he loses his locker, and he points out several times to Mick, "Hey, Mick, I ain't got no locker now." Like, you know, and that's the type of thing that bothers him. You know, it's something like
Yeah.
that bothered him.
Same with
And-
Adrian's hat. Multiple times.
And ultimately it goes into this whole storyline that, you know, he was trying to he had been trying to reach out to Mick for years. He turns around and tells Mick, you know, I came to you I think he said 6 years ago, I needed your help. You didn't care. And he's like, "Well, why didn't you just ask me?" And he's like, I asked you and you never heard nothing. And it's just because of Rocky's simplicity. He doesn't know how to just come out and just ask for help, but not in a way that Mickey really understood it. And because he's just so simple. He's an interesting character, very well written.
He doesn't want to bother people.
Yes,
Which is ironic.
I think
Yeah.
that's probably the best way to describe it. He doesn't want to bother anybody.
Yeah.
And when you finally see him and Mick come together in this film, the two of them actually meet each other. You know, you've got Mick at one point saying, "I've got knowledge and I got experience," and he says, I'm 76 years old, and it's Mick's way of kind of, "I've got this knowledge and everything, I want to pass it on." And Rocky is this person who needs to receive all of this, and everything, like I said, just comes together perfectly for him at the right time.
Did Mick ever train a world champion before Rocky? Was he a manager of a world champ, or do we not know that?
No.
Okay.
You kind of get the hint that this or the idea that this was a break, not just for Rocky, but it's a break for Mick too.
Half of the beauty of the film is the fact that he pulls the people who he's tied himself to, he lifts them up with him.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great.
Adrian
Yeah.
gets lifted up, Mick gets lifted up,
Paulie
gets lifted up.
Paulie.
Yep. It's very, very well done. And can't say enough good things about it. Anything else to say about the first one, guys? Cover the turf?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, you know what they say, gents. The money is in the sequel. You're going to want to make some money during the rematch. So that's what we get to in number 2. This one came out June 15th, 1979. The first two before I'm even born. This one was written and directed by Sly himself, which has got to be a chore and a challenge. Considering how much he had to get through in this one. But things get very real in this film. They get much more dramatic. Rocky literally gets life thrown at him in this movie. Everything from, you know, about to be a dad to his wife taking in the fact that he broke a promise, to Apollo Creed still yelling at him, asking for a rematch and wanting the fight to really prove how Apollo is the champ. There's a lot going on in this film, but it is very well done. The budget on this one, it was under $1 million last time. This one, they kicked it up a bit, $7 million.
Wow.
Yep. And it took in at the box office $200.1 million. It was the second highest.
You got to keep in mind back then they didn't have inflation the way that they did. Ticket prices were a lot less, and so, you know,
It's a lot of money.
Worth of ticket buys were a lot different than they are now.
It was the second highest grossing film of 1979.
What was the first?
I
Do we
don't
know?
recall. I think it might have been Close Encounters, the third kind.
Really?
I think it might have been that. I could be dead wrong.
Okay.
Someone will correct me, I'm sure. Or I'll correct myself one way or the other. And I'll get myself in the comments there. I stand corrected, folks, if I am wrong.
Yeah, you can correct yourself. I'm not going to look it up.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Me either.
No need to waste time.
No.
Gents, number 2. Break it down for me.
Go ahead, Josh.
So number 2 was interesting. Is it my favorite? No, but there are parts of it that I really loved, and parts of it I was like, okay. I mean, Derek, you kind of went through some of the stuff. One of the things was there was always this notion with him and Adrian that, okay, I'm going to do this fight and retire.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then she's like, well, why don't you do something else? And then we find out he can't read,
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big hit to his confidence.
That's the other one, the detached retina.
I'm going to
Right.
be doing commercials. No problem.
And anyway, and then you see Apollo in this movie, who is totally different though than what he was in the first one. I mean,
Yeah.
he's as serious as can be. He's got, no pun intended, the eye of the tiger.
Can I make one
Yeah, go for it.
statement about this one?
Put your hand down. Just turn around and say it.
Okay, I'll acknowledge the tribal chief first, and then I'll go. All
Just
right.
turn around and say it. Just turn around, please.
So maybe one of the best scenes in all of the movies is the scene when Duke gets real with Apollo and says, I watched you beat that man down like you have never beaten a man before. And he kept coming.
Yeah.
And that's when Apollo has to get very real with himself, what he's up against.
Yeah, it was. I did love my favorite part. I think we both talked about this, about your favorite parts in movies that you can watch over and over again. It's when after the baby is born, and he goes in, and Adrian was in a coma, right?
Yeah.
And he sits down with her, and she goes, "There's just one thing I want you to do." And he's like, "What?" And she's like, "Come here." And he's like, "What?" And she goes, "Win." And Mickey goes crazy.
What are you waiting for?
I'm getting chills. And then you have that
Yeah.
awesome training montage, where he just is, going full throttle with it. He's got his confidence back. And then you had the fight, which, the fight was amazing. That ending when they both knock each other out, and you've got the slow count, the 1, 2, and then at the very end, Rocky gets up. So that was very cool. It's not my favorite, but I still thought it was a very good movie, very good sequel. Hey, Mr. Tiger, I'm getting married.
And to you, Bob.
I think Rocky 2 is a very underrated sequel. A lot of people, for whatever reason, they have it a lot lower on their list, and I think it's extremely underrated. I think it's solid throughout. It has a lot of interesting ideas in it. For one, you've got the idea of Rocky having to deal with success for the very first time, and he's got money for the very first time.
Yeah.
And you see him spending money like he had money for the very first time.
Yeah.
And because in his mind, oh, well, I'm going to be doing commercials and no problem, and then heck, he was even thinking of investing in condominiums. Condominiums,
right.
I never use them. He says. Anyway, no, so he wasn't even thinking of it, but they asked him if they wanted to invest it. My point is that he's having to deal with all this stuff, and you see him going out and buying a car that he doesn't know how to drive.
Yep.
He goes out and he buys these watches, he buys these coats and this jacket, and he buys all this stuff. He goes and gets us this house that he doesn't even listen to anything that they're saying about, oh, I think this is a great house, and he doesn't even listen to Adrian, and she's like, well, the bank can give us this type of loan, and what, it don't matter, this is just details, I think we should take the house right now, and because he's just excited for the fact that he's got all this, and then he finds out, of course, Adrian's pregnant and all that, so he's got all this, every life, like you said, is rushing at him, and for the first time he's got a little success, and then all of a sudden it starts to get taken away from him because now he's running out of money, And back to the reality is that I don't really have the skills to go out and do some of the things that I got to do. And so he's having to struggle with the fact that he's a fighter.
Yeah.
But he made this promise to Adrian, and he also he may not have the tools that he used to have to be able to do this. Heck, there's that amazing scene where he's talking to Mickey, and Mickey just turns around and slaps him in the face, and it catches Rock off guard, and Mickey's like, "You didn't even see that coming," and that was from a broken down pug like me.
Yeah,
and it's a realization that, heck, maybe I can't do this anymore. And so you see Rocky struggling with all that, and of course, you wouldn't have had the sequel unless he's going to fight Apollo again. So as the plot goes on, of course, he's going to fight Apollo, and I just think that it's well done, and the whole training sequence leading up to it, like you were saying, Josh, you get those fun training montages, but I actually think the sequences before all that are a lot more interesting from a character standpoint, because he's struggling again with the fact that he made this promise to Adrian, and you see him just struggling during his training. Like he can't even catch a little chicken. You know, you got Mickey, I want you to chase this little chicken, and he's out like, whoa, chicken, chase the chicken. It's embarrassing, and so it's just, I think it's a very underrated sequel. It captures a lot of human traits and aspects to it. I just love what it does. And then, of course, you brought up Apollo and how he's taking everything seriously. And I like watching that contrast that you see Apollo just going to town on these sparring partners, beating the snot out of them. And yet Rocky can't get his head in the right place because of the promise he made to Adrian. And obviously
I won, but I didn't beat him.
Yeah. Obviously, he gets that together, and then you've got the whole fight and everything like that. And so it ends in a great place. But I just like seeing Rocky having to overcome some of those things.
This movie was one I actually got to catch when my oldest was a baby, in those middle of the night episodes. And after we got him back down to bed, start flipping the channels, and Rocky 2 was on. There are some elements about this movie that start to really hit hard when you become a dad. Things get very real, as we talked about. When don't want turns into can't have, that's a very, very serious thing. And that's what really kind of ends up happening to Rocky in the movie until the end, because all he knows how to do is fight. And if he can't do that anymore, what does life look like for him? And we come to see little pieces of what that does look like. And finally, he is given the gift by the people he lifted up the first time. He's given the gift of faith from them to go win again. And that's what really hits you. That's what starts to tug on the heartstrings. And I'm with you, Bob. It's incredibly underrated. Go back and watch it if you have a chance, because it'll get to you. There's
real quick,
in this movie that are
real quick, Derek, before we move on to the next one, there was just another thing that I wanted to point out. What I like is the contrast from the first film to the second film. During a lot of the training sequences, nobody cares who Rocky is. Nobody knows who he is. You see him running on the streets and nothing. And yeah, it's a little bit cheesy, but in the second one, you see him running with all those kids and everything. And yeah, like I said, it's cheesy, but it showcases the difference in how people are viewing him, because now people have connected to this fighter and his story, and you see everybody's behind him now. And I thought that was a great contrast to see in the two films. Yeah, was it cheesy? Him running around and jumping around with all the kids and everything, but it's fun.
But it was fun. It's awesome.
Yes, it's an absolutely fun sequence to watch. And like I said, it really showcases the difference and how far this character has come by this point, as far as he, use a term from the other Rock, he is the people's champ at this point.
By the way, quick question. The chicken scene was the second movie, right? Was it the first one?
No.
Okay.
No, that was the second one.
He's like, you look like a goyle out there. What's the matter with
Oh,
you?
yeah.
I feel like a Kentucky Fried Idiot.
Isn't this robe nice? It's perfect.
That's real cute. I like it.
Oh God, that's funny.
So again, obviously we like the first, but the second, don't that one either, folks. On to the next.
Absolutely.
Okay, so for the next, I got to do this. Thunderlips is here, brother.
Oh, that's
I
funny.
seen wrestlers that was bigger than dinosaurs. You ever fight a dinosaur, kid? I can do a variety of damage.
Oh my God.
Yes, folks, number 3. Okay, this one came out May 28th, 1982, Memorial Day weekend.
I just looked it
Also-
up actually.
Yep, written and directed by Sly again.
Okay.
So this is his second shot at doing, pretty much triple duty with writing, directing, and acting. Budget for this one jumped up a little bit, $17 million. Taking in at the box office, $270 million.
That shocked me. I
Yep.
cannot believe
Well,
it
you got to
made
keep
that
in
much.
mind, by this point, Sly is an action star at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's deep in other stuff. That's true.
Yeah, so he's actually beginning to become a box office draw at this
What
point.
had come out? Had Rambo come out yet?
Rambo
I need to go
came
back
out,
and-
I think
Like,
81.
what was-
I think the first Rambo came out in
Okay.
1981. I think.
Really?
Yeah, it came out very early 80s.
I think Bob's looking it up. I
Yeah,
think
let me
Bob
look
is,
at- let me look up what
I
it is.
think because I thought later for some reason for Rambo.
Well, maybe I don't know.
But I
feel
don't know.
like it
Maybe
was
Derek's
seriously
right.
early.
Okay, so some of the movies that he would have had already come out by that point. Yes, he would have had First Blood that came out in that actually came out the same year as Rocky 3.
Oh, wow.
But he had a
Oh,
film
good
called
year.
Nighthawks come out, a film
Okay.
called Escape to Victory, film called Fist, Paradise Alley. So
I've
he's
not
already
seen-
become. Plus, he had the 2 Rocky films under his belt. So he's already beginning to become recognized
Big
as
star.
a big star. And then, of course, you can't forget the big film that he did the year after that, Rhinestone.
Yes. None of those were over the top, though.
That is
That's
true.
some of his finest work.
Over the top. How about Oscar?
That-
Well, hey, I
You
don't.
look
I
on
will go to.
Oscar-
I will die on the hill that Oscar is actually a good movie. I like
You're the
Oscar.
only one. You're the only one I think
No,
ever has said
I
that.
think it's hilarious. I'm not saying it's a great. Okay, it's not a great movie, but it's a fun, entertaining.
It's fun
movie.
for what it is.
Yes, and a lot of people don't realize Oscar was a stage play, and so the film runs very much like a stage play.
I like Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. That's my cheesy Stallone movie.
Oh God!
Of course you do. Of course you do.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right, so back to
All
Rocky
right, go
IV.
ahead, Derek.
Alright.
Go ahead.
Well, anyway, that box office draw, that was the highest, obviously, in franchise history at the time. And it was the fourth highest grossing film domestically of that year. So, and another interesting fact, it was the second highest grossing film internationally.
Hmm.
So that means worldwide made some money. So this one gets, shall we say, a little animated. I'm not going to call it a cartoon. I don't think it needs to go that far. But things get very, I guess the word is cheesy, but it's beautifully cheesy. It
It's
doesn't
an
get much better.
80s movie. That's
It's
what
an
it is.
It's an
It's an
80s
80s
movie.
movie. I think
Yes.
it found the right balance between being an 80s movie and being a Rocky movie because it's still got some of that heart and drama that you find in a Rocky movie, but it hasn't gone completely over the top and become a straight up action movie like the next film in the series. And we'll get to that when we get to Rocky 4, but it found the right balance.
That's a good way to put it. A one-off mention for a very important character in the film is, of course, Clubber Lang, which may be the best boxing name ever.
Yep.
Played by the one and only Mr. T, who pities the fool.
Oh, pit of the fool. Pit of the fool.
And it's
Look
funny
at that
because
Suckerbill statue. Give him guts. Told you I wouldn't go away. Got your shot, now give me mine.
yeah, that's
What's your
good.
prediction for the fight? Prediction?
So I had only known Mr. T as a good guy in my life. I had never
Yeah,
seen him as a
same here.
bad guy.
Same
So
here.
when I see him completely annihilating Rocky, I'm about to cry. Mr. T's not a
Yeah.
bad guy. He's friends with Hulk Hogan. How can he be beating up Rocky like this? And so that was shocking to me. Luckily, the champ comes back and gets his prize. But that was the one thing that really did stand out for me in this film was the fact that Mr. T as a bad guy was a bad dude. And the fact that Rocky loses and Clubber stands with the title, that we hadn't seen before, where Rocky got conquered. So that was a big piece of business. Overall, like Bob said, it's an 80s movie, but your thoughts. Turn to you.
I think it's a fun movie. And yet it has a lot of dramatic moments in it. You know, I mentioned that in Rocky 2 that for the first time Stallone actually had or not Stallone, but Rocky actually had a little bit of success and he had to kind of learn how to manage it. This film looks at what happens when you become complacent. And you've kind of seen that success for a while and it becomes easy to be complacent and not still have that, get up and go out and get it attitude. And, Mickey even refers to him that he's become civilized. And that was the worst thing that could ever happen to a fighter. And I think, it has some pretty heavy hitting stuff. Of course, you've got Rocky losing his father figure when Mickey dies. You have him losing his title. Everything had built up to where he had all this success and then it all came crashing down. And it's interesting to see how he picks himself back up. And of course, we know that comes from the most unlikely place, from his former rival.
Mm-hmm. He turns to Apollo. And yes, we do lose Mickey, unfortunately, in this one. But that's what also makes it very good. So,
actually, what's interesting is because you say he turns to Apollo, but actually, Apollo was the one who reached out to him.
Yep.
Because Apollo wanted, in his mind, Apollo wanted an opportunity to kind of make things right for himself because he never tried to win the title back or anything like that after he lost it. So he doesn't go after Mr. T. I think that's kind of why he has that secret fight at the end. Yep. In his mind, he needs to beat Rock. He doesn't need to beat Mr. T.
No.
And so he needs, maybe in his own little selfish way, he needs Rock to still be the champ. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't want legitimately to help Rocky because I think he does. But I think he also wants Rock to make it right for himself. And then that way, when he has his little secret fight with him in his mind, the world's right the way it should be.
Mm-hmm. That's a good take.
Well, I got to tell you guys, Bobby knows this. Derek, you probably know this. This is my favorite movie.
You should have saved that until later.
Rocky. I know. I'll say it again, but I thought this thing had everything.
See that, Derek? He ruins your setup.
Forget it. Wrap it now.
Can you guys let me talk?
No.
Can you guys let me talk? Good God. Good God.
Shut up!
Thank you.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Right on
Somebody cut Bobby's hands off. Anybody out there? My God. Jeez. Anyway, now I don't even know what I'm saying. Thank you, you guys. Are you happy?
Yeah.
Happy?
Yeah.
Let me tell you, this is an F, okay? Good God. I give up.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
No, are you sure? Would you like me to wait for you to show 10 other dumb things?
I don't know. Derek seems to like it.
Well, Derek likes everything. Anything that insults me, Derek, you become best friends with. I just loved everything about this movie. I love the training montage. And it's funny because one thing that Bob said was that, he looked to Apollo, someone you wouldn't realize. There's one other thing, though. Adrian, really, when he was down in the dumps, she let him have it. And when he says, I'm afraid, and she just like it's the first time where she was strong. And then all of a sudden, he's like, when did you get, what was it? When did you
When you get
become
to be so tough.
tough? And she's like, I'm married to a fighter. And then you have that scene on the beach with him and Apollo, and then him training harder than you've probably ever seen him train in a very different way. Swimming, and he takes Paulie and pulls him into the pool, and he's just got this new type of confidence. And then at the end for the final fight, when he just comes out and he starts hitting, you don't see that in the Rocky movies. It's kind of like a slow, measuring each other, testing each other out. And in this one, he went right after Clubber Lang. And it was just amazing because it was a tale of two fights. That first fight, like Derek said, Clubber beat the what out of him. Like Rocky had, I like the word that Bob said, that Rocky was complacent because he literally was like, oh, come on, Mick, let's do this one more fight. And he just thought it was going to be easy. He could ride a bicycle. He had the girl kiss him. He was just, taking pictures. And then he gets in with Clubber. And he just, not only, let me go back. He has the incident with Mickey. And now that's on his mind. And he's going against a beast. And Clubber just destroys him.
Josh, you mentioned that how good the montage is, and he's training harder than he ever had before. Part of that is because he had to learn a whole new style. And that's, I think, part of what makes the fight so exciting is the fact that it is a completely different Rocky from what we've seen before. He learned a whole different style because in fact, his regular style is very much like Clubber's.
Yeah.
And so he had to learn to be different. And that, in a lot of ways, made the fight more exciting.
How many rounds did that fight go?
3.
The one at the end?
3.
And then the one at the beginning was 3 as well?
2.
2, wow. So, yeah, I think my only negative of that whole movie was Mickey dying because I love Mickey. But it was a great story arc from, him being so cocky and confident, but then getting blasted and not having Mickey anymore. And then Apollo coming in, and you thought, oh, he's going to, be good with Apollo. And he wasn't. He really was down in the dumps with Apollo. And then when Adrian comes in, and then all of a sudden it was like a light bulb went off and he became a whole different fighter.
Mickey had to die, though. That's the thing. Because if Mickey doesn't die, the whole sequence with Apollo, it doesn't work.
No, it would never work. No.
Yeah, because everybody would have been like, well, why isn't he with Mickey? Why did he just dump Mickey and go to Apollo?
No,
you had to kind of have Mickey out of the picture, unfortunately.
Yeah, you had to go through a loss in order to have that gain.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it was cheesy. There were some cheesy parts. The one with Hogan and so, hey, can we get a Polaroid together? Yeah, sure.
Well, heck, even the final fight is a little cheesy as well. I mean, heck, he's sitting there grabbing on top of Clubber's head, going, grabbing on top of the mohawk, and whatnot. So, yeah, even then, it's got some cheesy moments.
Love that movie.
But I'll say this: Clubber Lang, he's got some of the best one-liners or some of the best lines through the whole thing.
Come on, Bobby.
Hey,
you want to do
ready for another beating? You should have never came back. and then Apollo's like, just be cool. Hey boy. After I crucify him, you next. And then he's like, and then you see Apollo, he's like, just get out of my face, chump. And you don't do that back of me, sucker. And this whole brawl before the fight, it's great.
And then Rocky goes, I thought you said to be cool. That was cool.
Yeah,
I'll beat you like I did last time.
See, there's so many great parts to that movie.
He's great.
Yeah,
he's a great
villain. Clubber Lang is a reminder of what it's like if you're on top. And you've got everybody coming for you.
Yeah.
And Clubber's workout.
You can't take your eye off the game.
And
there's always going to be somebody bigger and stronger coming after you.
Right, and Clubber, the way Clubber worked out, while Rocky was just taking pictures and all that, and he
Yeah,
was
T
doing the
was
sit
jacked.
ups and the chin ups, and
Mhm.
fighting. And what I didn't really know was at the beginning, Bobby just told me this a couple of weeks ago, was about the handpicked opponents at the beginning, that they just basically were just said, okay, because Rock, for you to have that confidence and win, and that was it. He was never challenged.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is that Mickey didn't set up the fights or anything. In fact, Rocky even's like, "Are they setups?" And he's like, "No, they weren't setups. It was good fighters. They weren't killers like this guy." And that's the whole point, is that he was picking fighters that Rocky could beat, but would give him a legitimate fight. But they weren't going to be guys that were going to come out and possibly kill him. And that was the thing. He was Mickey in his mind was protecting Rock. And you see, again, Rocky's very complacent. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that he won 10 matches in a row right after he had beaten Apollo. I mean, if you count the fight with Apollo, the 11 matches in a row.
Oh,
He's the heavyweight champ of the world. He's got money. He's got his kid is growing up. He's living in a mansion now. Everything's going good for him. Heck, he's doing charity matches with Thunder Lips. Doing all this stuff. And yet, there's somebody who's hungry, who's coming after him, like you said. Clubber Lang is that reminder that somebody's coming after you.
Right. There's always somebody hungrier than you.
Bigger, stronger, faster.
And you can't lose that you can't lose that edge. You can't become complacent.
The hunter becomes the hunted.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Very cool.
All
Derek,
right.
did you go? Did you talk? You talked, right?
Oh yeah. No, I said what I had to say at the beginning of it. And can't say enough about the fact that it is an 80s movie, and what's not to love. Good on it. Thank you for everything. Clubber, this was your one and only appearance in the franchise history. So we appreciate you, if you couldn't tell. Courtesy of Bobo. All right. That moves us on to number 4. Number 4 came out November 21st, 1985. This is Sly's third in a row writing and directing. So he did this dance, you would think, 3 times. We'll talk about that later. But that is a chore and a half to do this 3 times back to back to back in the franchise history. This budget came in a little bit more, $28 million this time. Box office, $300.4 million.
Wow.
It is the highest grossing film in the entire franchise history. This is the one. It is the 3rd highest grossing film domestically and 2nd internationally. So, folks, this did some big business, and many consider this the pinnacle. This is U.S. versus Russia. This comes in a perfect time when the Cold War has just wrapping up, or about to wrap up, or has wrapped up, however you want to look at it. It is sensational, to say the least. We need to do another shout out to a one-time character here, and the incredible Dolph Lundgren playing Drago, the massive, massive cold killer fighting out of the Soviet Union. Gentlemen,
would somebody tell Derek how to say the guy's name already? I'm sorry. That's ridiculous.
No.
Drago, not
no.
Drago. He's not Drano.
Yes, he is. Because that's the American way to say it. Okay?
Like your papa. He ate spinach every day.
God.
And that was cold as can be when that Russian wife went up to Apollo's wife and tried to play nice.
Oh, yes. Regine Nilsson.
Yeah.
Another newcomer and former wife of Stallone, right?
Yep.
Yes. And obviously found a new flame in Flavor Flav down the line.
Yes.
Moving on. Excuse me. No disrespect, Flavor. I love Public Enemy. All right, Vince, let's talk about it. Who goes first?
I'll go first this time.
Right.
Go ahead.
So, wow. This movie is amazing. This movie does a lot of stuff right. Tells just a fantastic story. Again, I always remember this part. My sister and I would talk about it, how the training montage of this was so different than any of the other films. With this one, you had Drago, who, you know, was doing all the high tech stuff and steroids and everything that you really, you know, negative stuff, you know, in a
Human
way.
cyborg.
Yes, and you had Rocky, who's sitting there in Russia, and he's, you know, has the ropes, and he's running in the snow, and he's chopping wood, and it's just an amazing sequence. You know, compare and contrast on how they did it. Um, for me, you know, I loved Apollo and the fact that he died. Bobo knows this very well. That's my one really big negative of this movie. What I would have loved to have seen is maybe where Apollo Creed would have been paralyzed. And Derek, you can agree or disagree with me on this, and that he's pissed off at Rocky, very upset at Rocky, and that maybe he's got to like, he realizes towards the end when Rocky's training that, you know, he forgives Rocky and all he wants is that for America to win. That's what I would have done differently on this. I don't know. I still love the
Boy,
movie.
isn't that
Don't
doesn't
get me
that sound
wrong.
like a great story there? See him wheeling around and
Well, no, but
whatnot.
I don't know.
I
It's
just-
just I think it would have been. I don't know. I just felt
It would have been-
that.
I don't think an audience would have liked seeing Apollo Creed, you know, disabled like that.
So they liked
I-
him dead. They were fine with him being dead.
It's not that they
No,
liked him.
it's not that they're fine with him being dead. It's the fact that it gives Rocky a reason to do what he does, and I'll get into that when I talk about it. But yeah, I disagree with you on that one, Josh.
Okay, that's fine. But that fight at the end, God, that was just a crazy fight. And doesn't that fight to you guys seem like it took a while, right? Like it wasn't fast and it was brutal and you know, it just
Well, it's about the same as some of the other fights.
you think so? Like I just
you go-
thought
if
and then
You
had-
see two rounds at the beginning, then you do a montage through the remaining
right.
rounds all the way up to round 15, and then you do the final round. It's similar to what you would have seen in, say, Rocky 2.
Yeah, it was
Do you
about the
think
same.
Rocky- Do you think Rocky was not confident in the early rounds and towards the end he almost got that eye of the tiger back and the whole Apollo training?
No.
You thought he was good the whole way. Like he
Absolutely.
was just okay. Okay.
I mean, the guy's freaking running up a mountain screaming out his name. I mean, you're going to
Yeah.
tell me he's not ready to go on this? No, it's just simply that the opponent that he's fighting, and I'll get into that in a second. Go ahead, Josh.
No, and then the ending, this is very interesting because I think, as we all know, Sylvester Stallone during COVID came out with a director's cut of Rocky and Rocky 4. And I actually really enjoyed the ending of that one more than the theatrical cut. I thought it was
I've got
playing
some
with the
feelings
eye of
on
the
the-
tiger. Of course you do.
I've
Of
got some
course you do.
feelings on the director's cut.
But I just thought the whole movie in itself, though, was, I mean, like I said at the beginning of the podcast tonight, that's my first image is of, you know, Rocky 4. That's how I got into the film series. I love the James Brown sequence. That was awesome. And living in America. Yeah, but it's just, to me, it feels like just such a different movie. And I don't know if it's the time period or what it is, but every time I watch it, it just is so different.
Okay. You done there, Josh?
I'm done.
No. I'm just asking before I start talking about it. I didn't want to interrupt what you had to say because
Thank
this is to answer that question or that thought that you're having that it's so different. If Rocky 3 was a balance between an 80s movie and a Rocky movie, Rocky 4 is the 80th of 80s movies that there is.
Yeah.
It is simply what it is. It's a product of the 1980s, and you can see that in the way that the film is. It's not a long movie. It's about 90 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. It's not very long. It has this killer soundtrack that you see in a lot of movies during the 80s, which are why the training sequences are so different. Heck, you have that whole montage where he's driving a car and you see all these scenes from the previous films, and you keep seeing Drago in that. So the film is different. Stallone is a legit action star by this point. Look at the way his body is built. I mean, there's so few of us like that. And so
Yeah.
anyway, so the way he's built, the way the film is structured, it is structured like an 80s action movie. Now, the film itself is, I think it's a fun 80s movie. There's a lot to like in this movie. And there's also some cheesy stuff that you see from an 80s movie. You got the robot, for example. A lot of people didn't like the robot. In fact, the robot was taken out of the director's cut. But that's something that you would have seen in an 80s movie. And so it's got a lot of fun stuff. It's got a lot of cheesy stuff. But what it does real well is the story is simple. It's almost a revenge type story, because Rocky's trying to get revenge for what happened, or not necessarily revenge, but avenge his the death of his friend. And again, it's something that's very simple. And the film itself, this whole idea of, East versus West, the United States versus the Soviet Union, it came at the right time, because it wasn't that around the time that Gorbachev had become leader of Russia.
Yep.
So it was the right time that it came out. And you were talking about the fight, about how brutal it is. If you listen, it almost sounds like a lot of the punches, they almost sound like bombs hitting.
Yeah.
And I think that was done on purpose for it to sound the way that it does. And
that's interesting.
I think it was done on purpose. I mean, I could be wrong on that, but that's just kind of what I take away from it. And because literally these two were going to war.
That's a great takeaway. I've never, ever heard that. Derek, have you? But it makes sense.
And now that I have heard it, it makes total sense. Yeah.
And again, I could be completely wrong that that's what they were going for, but it seems that that's what landed. And then, Josh, you and I remember we took that English class where we learned about archetypes, and Rocky IV has a lot of those archetypes that you see in literature or in stories, that you've got good versus evil, light and darkness. That's why Rocky's got a white mouthpiece. Drago has a black mouthpiece. And you've got this idea of nature versus technology. And you've got Rocky out training in nature while Drago's doing all the high-tech stuff and the steroids and everything. And I think it's just a great film. It's fun. It's patriotic. It makes you feel good when the movie's done. It's at this ultimate high. Now, I said I had a couple thoughts about the director's cut. The director's cut has some scenes in it that I like. It has a lot of scenes in it that I like, actually. But I don't like the way that the director's cut was actually structured. I think it would have been better if they had done more an extended cut of the theatrical version. Just have the theatrical version and turn around and throw some of those scenes back into the film where they were intended. Like, for example, I actually think that the funeral is done better in the director's cut than it is in the theatrical. And some of the scenes in the director's cut feel more like a Rocky film. So I think it would have been great to have some of those back into the theatrical cut, and maybe they could have found a balance between the two. But overall, the theatrical film is fun, it's patriotic, and you feel good at the end of the day.
This was along those lines of patriotic films. This was during a time when a lot of that was happening too. I believe Top Gun was around this time.
Yeah, 86.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember some others, but this was right in the mix of that Americana flavor that was happening. There's a lot to like about this movie. Bob already said that and gave a great synopsis of what there is to like. I will tell you that there is one part in the film that always gets me, other than Apollo getting killed, because that was nasty. But it's when Duke gives him the speech in the house. about basically giving him his. I think he gave him the trunks. I think that was that where he
In
hid him?
Russia.
Yeah,
In Russia, right?
Yeah, in Russia. And then the other scene that always gets me, I don't know why, is when Duke is holding Rocky by the head and puts his forehead up to him and goes, "No pain, no pain." That gets me every single time. And I don't know why, but it's almost like in the fighting world, Duke and Rocky lost everything. Because now Rocky doesn't have Mickey and he doesn't have Apollo. And now Duke's only got Rocky as his fighter. So now they
he even refers to Apollo as his son.
Yeah, that's right. In that
you
movie,
mentioned that scene where he's talking to him. He even turns around and says, "Apollo was like my son. I raised him."
Mm-hmm. And now Rocky is really all that Duke has left.
Wait, but did he give him the trunks? Or Rocky, I thought, already had the trunks.
I think Rocky already had them at that point because Apollo wore them in his fight with Drago, and of course,
I think Duke handed them to him just because he was holding them or something like that.
There's something that kind of gets overlooked in this film because of the way the next film starts, but in the film, Rocky actually gives up the championship in order to fight Drago.
Right, we just talked about that.
If you watch like all the newspaper clippings and stuff like that, right as they're going into the press conference with Drago, they're saying stuff that the boxing commission wouldn't sanction the fight, and that Rocky ended up giving up the championship so he could go to Russia to fight. Now, obviously, in the next film, he comes back, he's still champ. And I was actually talking with Josh about this the other day. It leads me to believe that maybe since Rocky was the undisputed champ, that maybe the title was broken apart at that point, because to become an undisputed champ, you have to have the belt from all the different divisions. And so maybe it was split apart and went to somebody else at that point, and that's why he was still champ later. Just kind of a technicality, but a lot of people forget that he actually gave up the title in order to do it, because when you come back in the next film, he's already champ. So
the other part that's a great point that did slip my mind. The other thing that I really did love about number 4 was the fact that there was such a contrast of a villain from 3 to 4. Clubber Lang couldn't stop running his movie. Drago barely says anything.
Yeah.
What he does say counts. And the scene when he is about to fight Apollo, and Apollo's getting all this, glitz, glamour, and James Brown and dancing took us off. It's great. But Drago is just rising from a black ring at the bottom. And that summed up everything about that villain. That's exactly how that should have gone. And so I love that contrast. Again, you guys have summed up enough about Rocky IV. It's a great one. It is Americana personified. A good old slice of American apple pie. A la mode. Put some ice cream on it. Any other thoughts on that one?
No, I think we're getting to the one we're all ready to talk about.
Yeah, I think this is it. Okay, here we are.
Judgment, I'll sue.
Thank you. Sue me for what? All right, Rocky V. November 20th, Thanksgiving, 1990 is when this came out.
Wow.
Written by Sly, but directed by a returning John Avildsen. He came back for this one.
Yep.
And the budget for this one was $42 million. The box office was $119.9 million.
Ouch.
Yep, this one didn't do so hot. So that's too bad. But it is, I guess, fun for what it's worth. Unfortunately, in this one, we don't get the Rocky and the ring fight that we're looking for. My ring's outside. But
TKO from Tokyo.
Tommy, you're a piece of garbage. You know that?
The sound of the parade coming through. All right, let's get into this one. We do have to give a big shout out to George Washington Duke. This is the only time you're going to see him in the whole franchise. Go back and watch him if nothing else, just for that. All right, gents, go for it.
Go ahead, Bob.
So the fifth film problem with it's got a lot of problems. And one, it's coming down from the high that was Rocky IV. And what is the first thing that they hit you with right after that? There's something wrong with Rocky.
Ugh.
That's the first thing that they hit you with.
Yep.
He's sitting there in the shower and he's asking for Adrian because there's something wrong with him. And she comes in and you could tell he's got some sort of neurological damage or whatnot because he's shaking. And it just, like, after that emotional high that you just had, I mean, Rocky single-handedly ended the Cold War with that speech that he gave. And all of a sudden, this is what we're starting off with. And so right off the bat, they take you from this high that you're on and they bring you crashing down. So right off the bat, the film hits you. Then, he comes back and he gets offered a title match. And, because you have Duke shows up there at the airport and he's like, can you get my man here, Union Kane, a shot at the heavyweight championship of the world? Balboa, I want the opportunity to take what you got. And so, he's got this title match presented to him, but he announces he's going to retire because he's thinking, okay, well, this is it for me. And then all of a sudden, bam, it hits you again. Now he's lost all his money. Because it turns out his lawyer had taken everything. So now he's got brain damage because then it goes into that he goes and gets an exam from a doc who says that he's got brain damage. So he loses all his money. He's got brain damage. He can't take the fight that he needs to take to actually get out of trouble. And then he ends up having to go live back on the streets. And this is all within the first 20 minutes. And so
Downer.
it's not the film that people wanted. And then all of a sudden, it goes into this whole, spiel where he's training this up and coming boxer who turns out was just using him to move forward in his own career. And then he's having these problems with his son. It just seemed like it was problem after problem after problem after problem. And then, like you said, at the end, when you finally do get to the fight, it's not the fight that anybody wanted. It happens out on the street, which I actually think was kind of cool. I know a lot of people will disagree with me on that. I thought I'll give them credit for trying something different, but it's not the fight that they wanted. And then let me ask you a question, and you guys tell me what you think. Because at no point, even with the brain damage and all that, at no point did I feel like Rocky was the underdog in that fight.
No,
because he's fighting on his turf and he's fighting against a boxer that he trained.
Yep. And
that's not Rocky. Rocky is an underdog story. Now, in all fairness, how do you come up with an opponent that's better than Drago and better than Mr. T in the ones before, or even before that, Apollo, who Rocky refers to as the perfect fighter? And yet, so how... Tommy Gunn just didn't do it for me as an opponent. And so the film just had so many things wrong with it. Obviously, George Washington Duke was a fun character.
Judgment, I'll sue.
And we all enjoyed seeing him out on there. And he's probably the one that we end up quoting the most. But really, he's the only thing that's memorable. Well, maybe not the only thing, because I do think there's a couple of memorable scenes in there. Like the whole scene where has the flashback to Mickey, I think was a good scene.
Because Mickey loves you.
Yeah, I actually think that's a good scene. But the film just has so many issues with it.
Go ahead, Josh.
Oh God, boys, there's a lot to unravel here. This movie what a downgrade from all the others. First of all, like Bobby said, you start, with him in the shower with these neurological defects going on. And then you've got all of a sudden, he's got the necklace from Mickey out of nowhere, just, hanging there. We've never seen Rocky wearing a necklace. Then they have this whole story about all of a sudden Mickey, you don't even hear about since he's died. And all of a sudden, do you remember when Mickey did this? And then they show the image of him before the Apollo fight, and he gives him the gloves, which he never did. and it was just so, so weird. And then I think Bob would have probably said this, but he didn't, about his son. Here we have him as a little kid, like a kindergartner, and you're telling me the next week or so he's a teenager? I mean, that was so ridiculous. And yeah, and again, I think it's like, Bobby and I always talk about this with one of our other favorite shows, 24, when season 5 of 24 was the greatest season ever. And what happened was season 6 had to follow it. So here you had a great movie in Rocky 4, and then Rocky 5 had to follow it. I will say this: my favorite scene is what Derek just said with Mickey, when he says, "Get up, you son of a," Mickey loves you. That gives you chills. I mean, the
Real quick,
street
Josh.
fight.
Sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt. Just real quick. You mentioned about his son being much older.
Yeah.
That was simply just so he could have his own son in the film. That's really what that
yeah.
came down to. Now, I agree with what you're saying, but that's really what it came down to.
Okay. I mean, again, it just, I don't know. That just bugged me. And then him losing the money, and it just, the whole story just to me fell apart. Maybe the street fight was okay. And maybe I guess they wanted to do something different because the whole Drago thing was so, awesome. They're like, well, what are we going to do? We have to think outside the box. So, excuse me, we have, this real boxer, John Morrison, who, by the way, was the Duke.
Was it John Morrison? I thought it was Tommy Morrison.
Tommy Morrison in real life. Tommy, sorry. And, I think if they had fought in the ring and did a story in the ring, it would have been
Gun only fights in the ring.
better. Yep. I think it would have been better if they had done that. And I don't know. It just was like they were almost trying too hard.
You know what I think it was is you mentioned, Derek, that the original director returned for this film, and I think they tried to go back and tried to capture some of the magic of the original film, because Rocky himself, in a lot of ways, is dumbed down again a little bit.
Yeah.
Just in the way that he speaks and stuff like that. It's different than the way he is in, say, Rocky 4 or even Rocky 3. It's like he goes back from, I don't want to say he was like sophisticated in the way that he was talking necessarily in the other two films, but there's definitely a difference, and they kind of go back to that. But I will say we did get some great lines in Rocky 5. There's some fun stuff, like it's just simple stuff that Rocky says, like when Duke's talking to him on the street, outside of the gym, and he turns around and tells him, not like Mark Twain once said, virtue was never as respectable as money. And you've got Paul, he's like, who was Twain? Oh, he was a painter. He was a painter.
A businessman with reason for brain to retire when he could still pull in the bread, baby.
These are your medical reports. They're not so good. But we can work around it.
The papers. This is your medical report. It's not so good, but we can work around it.
Sue me for what?
Rocky 5 has some redeeming qualities in it.
This ain't no pie eating contest.
And I think that if they had done some things differently, it could have been a good film. But it is the stinker of the franchise.
Oh yeah,
I'm gonna put in my thoughts here, and I'm gonna make it quick, boys. Other than George Washington Duke, film's pretty much pointless.
Yeah.
Well, there's no real. I mean, what gets accomplished? Nothing really, right?
No. Apparently, I think, Bob, did you tell me this? The original script called for Rocky to die?
I think originally, yes. He was supposed to die in that. And then, of course, that didn't happen. Stallone reworked the script. But so, yeah, that would have just been another downer. You mentioned, Derek, that that nothing really gets accomplished. I mean, you could make an argument, well, maybe he fixes things with his son. But in the next film, he's having some problems with his son again.
Yeah,
exactly.
So, and granted, they're at a different point in his son's life, and there are different types of problems. But really, what gets resolved?
Yeah. It just leaves not a great feeling. Bad taste in your mouth is, other than pointless. That's the best way I can explain it.
And it's good that you say that it leaves a bad taste in your mouth, because like I just said, you feel good after Rocky 4.
Yeah, you do.
You don't feel so good after Rocky 5. Even
No.
with the ending that they tried to end it on a hopeful moment where they're going to the museum together and he gives his son the chain
The
now
necklace.
and the necklace now. And he's like, you see his son, as long as this statue's here, the pigeons is always going to have a place to, they try to end it like on this light note, but it
That's
just doesn't
dumb.
work.
It was
It
dumb.
just doesn't work.
Look, to be fair, you came off such a high with 4 really awesome movies. To try and do a 5th and maybe try to even recapture that magic probably isn't going to work in your favor.
No.
And that's no knock on them. I think it's just very hard to do.
But again,
terms of making
Stallone
movies.
didn't direct it. Stallone didn't direct it. All the others, maybe if he had directed it.
Nah,
It would've
Yeah,
been
but he
different.
still wrote it.
but then again, you're rolling dice on
Yeah.
that too. How do you know? Because again, it's still coming off a huge high.
Yeah, true.
So,
Yeah, it's
I don't want to sound totally negative about it, even though I am.
I will.
Yeah,
yeah, it was not good.
it was not good. It was
not good.
pointless. But there wasn't really much I think you could have done to make a 5th. You really would have had to sit down and think long and hard about that.
And Tony wasn't in it. He was in it for 1 minute, not even 1
Yeah.
minute.
Well, he didn't have to be in it because Rocky was the trainer in Rocky 5.
I know. It would have been. I don't know. It would have been cool to. I just think they could have done a totally different storyline.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on. Speaking of other things that can somewhat be downers as well, we took a pretty big lapse of time here to get to the last one. December 20th, 2006 is when this one came out. They just called it Rocky Balboa because Rocky 6 may have been taken. So this one had a budget of $24 million, box office 156.2. So
Wow.
not terrible, but certainly, with the others that had success, nothing to write home about. This was written and directed by Sly again, so he wanted the last take on everything. So good on him for that. This one is good, I guess, for what it is, but Bob, to your point, talk about downers.
Okay, all right. We're gonna have some fun here on this one then, because I completely disagree with you. I like
All right,
Rocky Balboa.
okay. What do you like about it?
Well, I think it's the closest that you're gonna have to the original film, as far as the feel of it, the way that it goes. Yeah, you've got some down moments as far as the fact that you find out Adrian has passed away, but I think for the most part, you've got this character who is at a different point in his life now. He's trying to move forward with something new to like that next chapter of his life, and to kind of come to grips that his life's not over. There's still more there, and the fight kind of symbolizes that, him kind of overcoming that and moving forward, and just kind of getting rid of everything that's kind of built up with him. Josh and I actually went to see this one together, and I will admit, the audience, they had fun with that. We were cheering at the end of it. We had a good time, and especially when you talk about how bad Rocky 5 was, this was more a return to the roots of the franchise. And I think it's got some great scenes in it. I love the scene where he's talking with Paulie in the there in the meat house. And
What's the matter?
he's talking about, exactly. He's like, well, there's still stuff in the basement. And I think that's a great scene. And I love the scene where he's going around to all the different places where he was with Adrian. When he goes back to where the ice rink was at, or he goes back to his old apartment and he's remembering everything. I think those are some good scenes. It easily has the best speech in the entire franchise. It ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward, about how much you can take and keep moving forward, because that's how winning is done. That's easily the best speech in the entire franchise.
True.
I love this film. I think it's pretty good. And I love, what's his name? Milo Ventimiglia or whatever, who plays his son.
Yeah.
I can't pronounce his name, but he was in Gilmore Girls. He was in Heroes.
Yeah.
What's that show that you love, Josh, that he was in? This Is Us.
Yeah. He did a great job in that show.
Yeah, he's a fantastic actor. And to have him play Rocky's son in this, I thought was well done. It was nice seeing some of the characters come back with Polly, and you even see little Marie come back out of nowhere.
Spider Rico.
Jesus wants me to work. He's down in there and he's cooking in there. He even gets that dog, and he's running around with that dog. You see Polly looking at, what an ugly dog, and I love Rocky Balboa. I think it's a good movie. And then just a real quick, Derek, to add on to what you said, that maybe Rocky 6 was taken. I think that's more just a product of the times that, so many films were going away from adding numbers to it. Instead, you begin to see films that just have names like look at the Avengers movies, for example, from the MCU. You got Avengers, Age of Ultron, Infinity War, Endgame. They don't say Avengers 2, Avengers 3, Avengers 4. They have, they got rid of the number. And I think that's just more a product of the times. Heck, even, Stallone's other franchise that he returned to after this one, the fourth Rambo film is just called Rambo.
Yeah,
right.
That's true. He's making another Rambo, by the way.
That's what I'm hearing, that he's playing with that idea. I don't know if ultimately it'll happen.
The trailer's out.
Is it?
Mm-hmm. John Barenthal plays the villain.
Really? Like the real? Wait a minute.
I'm wanting to say that's probably like a fan trailer.
Are you sure it's not a fan trailer?
It looked fairly, from what I could tell.
When's it coming out?
Summer.
I haven't heard anything like that. I'm thinking that's a fan trailer.
You think so?
I'm thinking so.
I don't know. We gotta look.
Hold on.
But I do know he's played with the idea of doing another Rambo.
I think we would have known. I think we would have been like, Bob would have called me and said, "Did you see the Rambo trailer?"
At the end of the day, I think Rocky Balboa, though, is a good return to form, and I like the fight that he has in the movie, and obviously I like the fact that he doesn't win. It takes into account that he's older. The only reason he's able to continue to fight strong is because the champ actually breaks his hand during the fight. That's why Rocky's able to keep going, because during that second round, you see the champ throw the punch, and then all of a sudden he breaks his hand. And when he goes to his corner, he's like, "Yeah, my hand's broke." And they say, "Well, it'll numb up on you. It'll numb up, and then you'll be able to start throwing punches." So that gave Rocky the chance he needed to. Now, don't get me wrong, the character, did what he had to do, and he overcame a lot. But they do take his age into account.
Okay. All right. Good points. Good points. Josh, to you.
I'm going to be honest with both of you for the first time ever. I'm really 6 feet tall. No, I'm kidding.
Shut up!
Oh my God, is that annoying? Oh my God. Oh jeez. The honesty is, I would say this is my least watched Rocky movie. I saw it with Bob. I've maybe seen it, a couple of times. It wasn't. It was on not too long ago, and I watched part of it. The whole thing was interesting. I'm not sure if I love it as much as Bob does. It was good. I think it definitely was a million times better than Rocky 5.
That's not saying much.
No, the ending, I thought the ending was...
See, that's sad, Josh, because you watched Rocky 5 more than you watched this one.
Yeah, probably. I didn't even remember.
It's better than Rocky 5, man.
Can I continue? You've been talking for 45 minutes. I can't get a word out. Bobby's talking every
Go ahead.
He's like, my God, he doesn't shut up for a minute. Anyway, love you, Bob. But like, I didn't even remember what's his name had broken his hand. I remember the whole thing with him, how they figured out the fight that it was a computer image, right? A computer generated fight where Rocky won, right?
That's what
And then
started the whole thing. Yeah.
that's where he got the idea, and then how he owned a restaurant. And I didn't like here's a pattern, Adrian not being there. I don't think he had to do that. I think that would have been, I don't know. I thought
No, I think it works.
that, of course you do. I
Because
thought
she
it
would have
lacked
been there the
something.
whole time. She would have been there the whole time. Rocky, I don't want you to do it. And this way, when he had Marie there, she was
He didn't
saying,
have to
no,
worry.
if this is what you got to do, then go do it, because fighters fight. Because at this point,
Right.
he's trying to overcome a lot of the issues or the feelings that he's got. And a lot of that stems from the fact that Adrian died.
Got it. Yeah. And the part in the cemetery where he's talking to her, was sweet. And the fight itself, I mean, how many rounds did that go?
It went a full 10 rounds because it was an
It did.
exhibition fight. Remember, this wasn't for a title or anything like that.
Right,
They were
no.
going to donate some of the money to charity,
Yeah.
but yet it turned into a real fight. And a lot of that, again, had to do with the fact that Rocky was there to actually fight. The champ was just there
Right.
because he needed something to help his publicity.
Publicity stunt.
Right. And now his training montage was definitely different in this one than the others. Didn't
Just
he
'cause
like
he had a
wrap a
little-
chain around him, and it was more like explosive exercises, and it just because it was
Well,
age.
he was building up to have it was about strength building because like Duke tells him that every time you deliver a shot, it needs to feel like he's kissed the express train. So the whole
Yeah,
point
rattle
was,
the
So hard it'll rattle his ancestors.
that's it right there. You see, and that was the whole point, is the type of training that he was doing was different than what he had done before.
For this fight, you need speed. You don't have any.
Yeah, that was in
around.
the trailer. I remember.
And then he tells him, what does
Ah.
he tell him about the calcium deposits?
Yeah. And
Yeah,
Paulie goes,
the
I had
arthritis.
that problem.
Go for it,
So we're
Derek. What
gonna-
did you think of this
Heavy
movie?
duty cast iron punches.
I
What
love it
did you
too.
think, Derek?
So okay, I take all your points about what you had mentioned. There is also something to be said about the fact that you wait 26 years and you see something again, you can make it probably a pretty interesting story, because that's a lot of time for things to pass and a lot of life happens in between that. And so I get that notion. It's just very hard for me to believe that he's going to get in the ring with Mason the Line Dixon, which, by the way, fantastic boxing name. And at his age and how beat up he is and with how many problems he's had, you're going to tell me he has a legit chance to even go 10 rounds? And maybe I'm reading too much into it and I had to suspend some disbelief. But right off the bat, that's a little unrealistic to me. I do like the fact that it does go back to his roots. It ends where it starts. That part's great.
How old
But-
was Rocky in this movie? Do we know?
I'm wanting to say he's somewhere in his 50s.
Yeah, I think it's
I-
somewhere around there.
And just to your point, Derek, that about him getting into the fight, that, like I said, I think that's why they take his age into account. The fact, and
They
that's why
do.
they have the champ break his hand, because if it's a straight up fight, he's not gonna. In fact, he even gets knocked out twice before he even is able to do anything in the fight. It's only after the champ breaks his hand that he's able to do something.
So we are all wrong. I just looked it up. Rocky is 60.
So he's supposed to be 60. Okay.
He's supposed to be
So,
60
see-
years old.
Okay, because my thought was that he was probably in his mid to late 50s, is what I was
Wow.
thinking.
Okay.
And that was, and the only reason I'm basing it on that is how old Stallone was at the time that he's playing the
Right.
character.
Yeah, there are some nice, like Duke's speech in that movie is fantastic too, where he's telling him, okay, everything that we did before, throw that out. We can't do that anymore. We have to do it this way. That was a great little montage there. the speech that Rocky gives his son is very good. It's very, very well done. But I guess it's kind of like where we, left off before with 5. I'm not going to call it pointless because the whole point of this was to feel the nostalgia. You wanted to return. You wanted to see where life went for him, and that's understandable. But other than take this charity gig, get some respect from the champ at the time, and you just kind of seeing where life has taken Rocky, which doesn't end up like, off in this, beautiful paradise. It gets him back to where he started. That's kind of where it began and ended for me.
That's why I say that the film is very much like the original film, because if you look in the original film, again, he's not trying to win the fight in the original film. It's about proving something to himself. And that's essentially what's happening here. It's about him trying to move forward in life. And he can't do that until he kind of gets rid of all that frustration and everything that he's feeling. And I love the end sequence where he's walking out. Yeah, like he doesn't even stay to listen to who won the fight. He's walking out already while they're announcing who won the fight, and he's already in the entry or by the entryway when they announce that Dixon won, and he's about to walk through, and Paulie and his son bring him back out, and he gets that one final, ovation from the crowd there, and I just thought that was awesome.
Okay,
that was a better image to end the Rocky series with.
You want to cheer for the champ. You want to cheer for the underdog one last time. I get it.
Are we getting another Rocky movie? We're not going to get another Rocky movie, right?
No, you're getting another Creed, which we forgot to mention. That's how successful this movie franchise was. They made spinoffs from it.
Creed, and just a quick thought on Creed, because I know we don't really want to go into that because I don't consider it part of the main franchise. It is a spinoff. But I do think Stallone gave one of his best performances as Rocky in the first Creed film.
Yeah.
But the one thing I didn't like about the first Creed film is it almost felt like they put him right back to where he was at the beginning of Rocky Balboa. And because he's having the same problems that he had with his son that were already resolved in Rocky Balboa. And so it was just some of those little things here and there. But as a whole, I do like the first 2 Creed films. Wasn't real big on the third one, but I did like the first 2 ones.
There you go.
Got it.
All right. Gents, we've been talking for a while. What do you say we talk about our favorite fight sequences and
let's do it.
Our favorite and wrap it up from there. All right. Who wants to go first?
I'll go
first. Ahead,
Josh. Okay. I mean, I think I've already kind of said this, but the best fight sequence I think was that, I would say, Rocky versus Clubber Lang second match. Just a whole different type of Rocky. Like I said, he was confident, was using what Apollo taught him, and really just, went toe-to-toe with Clubber. Bob?
For me, I'm going to answer this in 2 ways. I think probably the most entertaining fight sequence is probably from Rocky 3. And a lot of that is for the same reasons you already said. It's a different style of fight. It only goes 3 rounds, so it is very different. And just, they're talking trash to each other during the fight, which I think makes that a real fun fight.
Yeah.
Like you got Clubber turning around swinging at him and Rocky sitting there. Oh, my mother hits hard than that. Oh, you ain't nothing. I mean, they're literally talking trash to each other. And like one of the little sequences I love during that fight is right when they're breaking between the second and third round, and they're just talking back and forth. And Clubber Lang's like, "You must be crazy or something. You must be stupid." And he's like, "He's a fool." And then all of a sudden you hear Rocky say, "I'll see you in 60 seconds." I just, and it's hard to hear him because Clubber's talking, but you can hear him say, "I'll see you in 60 seconds." I just loved the back and forth in that fight. So that's probably the most entertaining fight. But my favorite is the Rocky Drago fight, and I already kind of talked about that. It felt like they were throwing bombs at each other. It was literally two countries going to war. These were our two representatives going to fight with each other. There's so much emotion behind it because of the death of Apollo Creed. I just love the Rocky IV fight. There's just, like I said, so much behind it. And then when you throw in the training that happened with before it, there was all this buildup to it. And just even some of the little stuff before it, like Paulie turning around and having that little speech with Rocky where he says, if I could just unzip myself and be someone else, I'd want to be you, because he's afraid that Rocky could die during this fight. So there's all this buildup. So once it happens, it's just awesome.
Gents, 4, and it doesn't come close. Nothing beats 4 to me. Like Bob said, this was war. This was nothing else but war. Every hit that they gave each other felt like they were looking to kill each other. And that's how things get raw and things get real. And even throughout the montage of like the scenes, not the scenes, but the rounds that you don't see, they show like little highlights of them still fighting, and it still looks like every time they're killing each other. Doesn't matter what happens in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. It's the same thing. Just blow after blow after blow. And you start to wonder exactly what Paulie is wondering, like, is Rocky going to make it out of this? And the fact that he goes to enemy territory. He's going to go in and be the heel, right? He's going to get booed when he walks out.
On Christmas Day.
Yep.
Christmas Day in Russia.
He's going to look their biggest soldier right in the eye and take him square on. And he, like Rocky never does, he never gives up. He never complains. He keeps fighting and fighting and fighting, even if it's going to kill him. Which you get the feeling like in the 5th, to be fair to Drago, those problems that Rocky experienced in the 5th, that was directly because of him. Drago was the one that caused that issue. I mean, maybe it came from other fights, but it was Drago that I think was the trigger for the pain. Real life story: Dolph Lundgren put Sylvester Stallone in the hospital for 4 days.
Yes, I was going to mention that. True story. Yep.
That's right.
Yeah, really, really, really did it.
That's right.
Some serious damage to his chest, I think. They caved it in.
Woo!
So that to me is my favorite. I love 4. 4 is Clash of the Titans.
I would have said that's my second favorite, is 4, in terms of that fight sequence.
2 gets you because 2 is more about the drama that leads up to it with Rocky, just because of how much he's had to overcome.
Right.
But 4 is pure enemy warfare.
Absolutely.
Yep. That's a good one. Good discussion. All right. Overall thoughts. Here we go. Your favorites. What's it going to be?
For me, I already said it. 3. I messed up. What do you want from me? What do you want from me?
I want you to be better.
You know what, Josh? I can't fault you for that. Rocky 3 is it's a fun
Thanks,
thing.
Dad. I want you to be better. I want you to be better.
Joking.
Don't listen to him, Josh. I can't fault you for it.
All right. What's your favorite, Bob?
I think my favorite is Rocky 4. Again, I just love the whole thing. Like Derek said, these are two guys going to war, and this is the U.S. versus Russia. And Rocky single-handedly ends the Cold War with that speech that he gives at the end. But I will say this: the best film is still the original film. That it's hands down the best film. There's a reason why it was a Best Picture winner, and it's the best film. So even though it's not my favorite, I do acknowledge that it is the best, because 4, it's so over the top at some points, but I love it.
Yeah, it's hard not to. Yeah, 4 is probably the most entertaining. I think we've mentioned that because it's great. Who doesn't love all the things that happen in there? It's the one that I had a friend when I was on semester at sea. He wrote a paper for one of his classes about how important Rocky 4 was. He wrote an essay and he turned it into the teacher. I'm not kidding.
What did he get?
I never found out. But he showed it to me, and I'm like, "You're going to turn this in?" And he goes, "Absolutely, I'm going to turn that in." And he
That's
absolutely
awesome.
did it. Yep.
So
But
it's
my
for your
favorite-
favorite is for okay.
Yeah, no, actually, I know I'm probably odd man out here, but I think my favorite is 2, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because of the fact that I did get to catch it in the middle of the night, and when
Right.
when the baby is finally back down in bed, there's so much that hits you as a new dad that you can relate to, and I didn't
Yeah.
expect to be hit by it the way that I was.
So it's got
And
that sentimental value to you.
yeah, it does. It does.
It makes
But
me want to watch it again. It makes me want to watch it, to be honest.
give it a go. Yeah, give it a go. It's I do agree with Bob. I think the one that is the best is the original. It's just a very well done film. It still holds up today.
Absolutely.
Right.
All of them really do, because the 3 and 4 are just good fun. The only one that really doesn't, I think, is probably, I'll even give you Rocky Balboa. 5 probably doesn't hold up, but the rest of them do.
Right.
So I'm gonna say 2, but big fan of almost all of them. All right. Well, folks, we've
And by the way, anybody out there, when we post this, comment, tell us what your favorite one is and why.
please feel free. We've noticed in the comments that everybody's been very kind and having us some great feedback, so we appreciate that. I probably just jinxed it. Now we're going to get the hate mail.
Nah, we're gonna be fine.
We're gonna be fine.
You'd be surprised. Like over on my channel, I've actually gotten quite a bit of heat on not this last video I posted, but the one that I posted before that. And I don't mean heat necessarily in a bad way, but just getting a lot of people commenting back and forth on the particular show. So you just never know when somebody's gonna, or when a topic's just gonna turn around and hit, and people are just gonna let loose.
Very true. I will leave with this just to wrap this whole episode up the right way. Sylvester Stallone wrote the script for Rocky by blacking out his apartment windows, staying up for 72 hours straight. And that's how the script got made. And to end it, I will say one of the best quotes I ever heard from Sylvester Stallone. He's the best friend I've ever had, is Rocky Balboa. And wouldn't you know it, he's imaginary.
That's awesome. That's
Yep.
awesome.
All right. Well,
That's
why don't we
awesome.
go ahead
All right.
and sign this up, because we ran the gauntlet. Why don't we do some social media? Go ahead and plug yourselves. Josh, go ahead first.
You can find me on, Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, Family Man of the Valley. I'm a realtor here in Southern California, and that's it.
Hey Josh, I was trying to call you earlier and I couldn't get through. Did you fix that problem?
Yeah.
Where you been? Looking for you all morning. Why don't you pay your phone bill?
God. Oh my God.
Oh, these next ones are going to be fun.
Oh, Bob is
Bob,
so
to you.
trying to be funny.
No, you can find me over on YouTube at Was It Good? Yeah, you could. The easiest way to search me is just at Bob Loves Movies, but I'll actually put the link in the description below. We actually hit over
Sorry.
200 subscribers yesterday. So
Nice.
and
Wow.
and the video that I posted with that, didn't even see it coming. Just posted it yesterday, and it's got, last I checked, over 1,700 views. So I'm happy
And
with
those
that.
200
Bob.
subscribers are Bob just subscribing by himself. Boom, 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 boom.
Hey, if it
boom.
works, go for it.
Hey, exactly. Don't be
Sorry.
hating on it, Josh. You're just mad.
didn't
'cause
write the
Sorry,
rules.
Bob, you keep talking. I keep falling asleep. Sorry, you're just so boring. Jeez. Take your hat off, Bob. Let's just.
Shut up!
Oh,
my
thank you for
God.
that.
Oh
right.
my God! I hope
And
your
as for
computer
myself-
crashes, Bobby.
And as for myself, you can find me at the Bridge Club with my senior citizen friends over at LinkedIn and Facebook.
It's so old. It's so old.
And we will go ahead and sign off for the night. We will catch you guys sooner than later. Thanks again for joining us. It's been a blast.
You guys have a great night.
Yeah, you too.
Good night.
Bye, guys.
Have a great night. Okay. Bye.